Hello students, I will try in this video to technologically introduce the minimum dimensions and the minimum distances between shearing and forming features that can be carried out on sheet metal blanks. Of course, I will try to explain as simply and as clearly as possible. Okay, let's go. First of all, it should be remembered that among the principal features that can be carried out on sheet metal blanks, we have shearing features and forming features. And it's very important here to note that we should take into consideration some rules about minimum dimensions of these features and also about minimum distances between features or between feature and edge. Of course, edge of sheet metal blank. These rules will permit to avoid problems related to plastic deformation, such as distortion, cracks, and others. For example, here the distortion can strongly affect the dimensions and the locations of the neighboring features. Hence, the importance of such minimum dimension and minimum distance rules. Well, for the minimum dimension of shearing features, and as you can see in this figure, we have a sheet metal blank on which a hole and a slot are carried out. The rule is the diameter of the hole must be higher than the thickness of the sheet metal blank and at least 1 millimeter. Same thing for the minor dimension of the slot. Now for the minimum dimension of band features, and as you can see in this figure, the rule is that the radius of the band must be higher than 1.5 times the thickness of the banded part. This rule will permit to avoid cracks that can occur during the banding operation. Let's move now to the rules governing the minimum distance between shearing features. And as you can see in this figure, the distance between shearing features such as holes and slots, and also the distance between shearing features and the edge of the sheet metal blank must be higher than 1.5 millimeters if the thickness is lower than 0.8 millimeter. The minimum distance must be also higher than 2 times the thickness if the thickness of the sheet metal blank is between 0.8 millimeter and 3.2 millimeters, and it must be higher than 2.5 times the thickness if the thickness of the sheet metal blank is higher than 3.2 millimeters. Now for the minimum distance between forming features, and as you can see in this figure, which depicts a sheet metal part with two forming features, which are the wiped band to the left and the flange to the right. The rule is that this distance, which is the distance between the two forming features, must be higher than 4 times the thickness of the sheet metal part, plus the radius of the first forming feature, plus the radius of the second forming feature. For the minimum distance between forming and shearing features, and as you can see in this figure, we have a sheet metal part with two forming features and a shearing feature which is a hole. And D1 and D2 are the distance from each forming feature to the hole. The rule is that this distance must be higher than 2 times the thickness of the sheet metal part plus the radius of the forming feature. Since there is an infinite number of featuring that can be carried out on sheet metal blanks, we have to define generic rules for minimum distances between features, and the table that you see permits to globally summarize these generic rules. That's all for this educational video. I will appreciate all your questions, your remarks, and your suggestions in the comments. Thanks a lot for your attention.